Welcome to the Labrador Podcast from Tales of Success Labrador Training. Hello, it's Vicky Sharp. I'm a trainer with Tales of Success Labrador Training and also your host for the Labrador Podcast. Welcome back to another episode. This is the episode where we hear from Megan, as she's going to tell us all about her teenage Labrador called Ziggy. Megan, thank you so much for joining us to talk about your boy today. For those listeners that haven't met Ziggy, give us a bit of a rundown of this boy's character.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for having me. I got Ziggy almost 18 months. Yes, so it would be 18 months ago at the end of May. He is a fox red Labrador. He is as crazy as his name. He loves high intensity games, going to the beach. He's a typical adolescent dog really right now at this age, but he is really showing us his shining personality and just how fantastic he is and how willing he is to do all of his training.
And 18 months is a crazy age, so I know it's a lot of fun. You've got days where you're screaming and days where you're smiling. Ziggy is the perfect name for a Ziggy high energy dog. So what made you come up with the name Ziggy? Where did that come from?
Oh, well, we both, me and my partner, are fans of David Bowie. And when we went to see the litter, of course, we were just going just to have a look. We never actually intended on taking one away. And as we came home, we were looking for all these different names. And I've always liked Buster, Rocco, like really hard, harsh names. But he was just this tiny little feminine looking thing. And when we went to see him again, he had this little zigzag down his tail. So yeah, it just kind of worked really. And then we just kept referring to him as Ziggy. We were like, should we get this for Ziggy when he comes? Should we do this for Ziggy when he comes? And he's always been Ziggy.
I love the fact you went to see a litter with no intention of buying a puppy. I think we've all been there. We've all kind of just gone to have a look and ended up coming home with the puppy because it's just too hard to resist when you've got those cute little noses looking up at you.
Yeah.
So 18-month-old Ziggy, where is he at his happiest? What's his favourite thing to do?
Enrichment is a very broad kind of statement, but specifically digging. If I say the word digging, if I say a word that rhymes with digging, his ears go up, his eyes brighten, and he looks at the back door as if to say, yes, mum, let's go do it. And that all started, we're renovating at the moment, and we've got a really, really long garden. And it's a very, very hard work, but we were digging up some weeds, and because we were doing it, he was just joining in. So it was like a real bonding moment that we both were doing it at the same time. So yeah, I'd definitely say digging is first on his list, but second and third would probably be the beach and sniffing. Like if I throw food to get him to hunt and sniff it out, he would do that all day if I would let him.
So for a dog that loves digging, I might regret asking this, but how many holes have you got in your back garden right now?
Actually, I've only got 3. One is probably big enough to fit him in lengthways, but he's very good at knowing that specific area is where he's allowed to dig. Yeah, he has tried to start digging in other areas of the garden, but I just always reinforce it and ask him to move up to the top and then allow him to do it. So he's reinforced by knowing that he's allowed to, but in a specific part of the garden.
Just not in the middle of your lawn or in the middle of the flower bed, yeah. So is Ziggy from working lines or show lines? Do you know what his kind of family heritage is?
His mother is a family pet, and they actually got a stud from a working line kind of breeder. So he's got a lot of working line in him. It does give me the kind of incentive and motivation to get him to do some kind of work going further down the line, whether that be, scent work or gun dog training. But right now I'm just trying to hone in on those real specific details that I need him to be a good family dog.
Yeah. When you got Ziggy, did you know kind of the differences between show line and working line Labradors, or is it something really you've discovered after the event?
If I could go back now and do more research about breed specifically, Labradors and dogs in general, I would. I knew that working lines obviously meant that they had high drive and they wanted a job to do. So I kind of knew the basics, but I didn't know at what measurement of how much they would love it, and they would have it within them. Obviously, just like yourself, if your mother was a doctor, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to thrive to want to do that. But with dogs, it's there, it's different. They have a need, they have a want to do those things that make them happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't matter what that job is, they just love that feeling that they've got a job to do or a bit of purpose to everything you ask them to do, really. And that could be as simple as digging your garden, because actually he does probably feel like he's achieving something really good there, even if you're not so keen on it.
Yeah.
Talk to us about your history with dogs. So prior to Ziggy, I know you had dogs as a kid, so tell me about kind of that experience and how that's helped you with Ziggy.
So we had Weimaraner's growing up. Sky was my first dog when I was very young, and then we got two brothers from the same litter, Bracken and Sunny. And at the time, you know, me and my mum fell in love with Sunny, who was the runt, and my dad fell in love with Bracken. And I was a stroppy only girl, youngest in the household, and they brought two home, which, you know, I mean, they were a handful. And I remember my dad cooking chili con carne and leaving it at the back of the stove, and they would literally jump on the worktop and eat the entirety of it. They were hard work, and I can't actually remember seeing my mum and dad doing any training. We used to do agility with Bracken, but they've got, I think, my dad has got a very different outlook of how dogs should be trained. Very kind of caveman theories of how a dog should be trained, and obviously the world's evolved and changed so much for the better in how we train our dogs, and I'm glad that I never picked up on any of that, really. It's only now as an adult that I understand how they trained them and how different it is now. So I loved having dogs, but I was just the one that would feed them biscuits off the side of my plate and take them for a walk around the block and play ball with them. So yeah, I had nothing to do with any kind of training. So
you just got like two best friends and a lot of fun from the four-legged creatures.
Yeah.
Interestingly, you mentioned about kind of that approach that maybe your parents took to training the dogs, and that it's probably differs a little bit from what you do with Ziggy. Do you think it kind of influenced you to do something different? Did you see at the time that it didn't sit right with you, or is it just that you now know a little bit more about it and you want to approach it in a different way?
I don't actually remember seeing it, but I remember my dad saying to me when I've been talking to him about Ziggy and saying, oh, he's loosely walking, I'm trying this, I'm trying that. And he said, well, Bracken would never cross your mother. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, and I just knew that there was, you know, a dragging of the lead, or like a yank as more of a correction, as opposed to actually trying to communicate with him to tell him what she wanted. It was more of a punishment of what she didn't want. So again, kind of masking what he was doing in that moment by just altering that behavior at that very time. So I didn't see it necessarily, but since I've been training Ziggy the way I have, my dad's been very, you know, questioning of, why don't you try my methods? I think that this will work. And I'm like, no, that's very different to how I want to treat my baby.
Yeah, and you know what, every dog is different, every situation is different, every owner is different, so you have to find the way that works for you. You know, you can have 10 people telling you how to do it, but it's got to sit right for you. So if we think back to Ziggy's training, when you bought this cute little bundle of fluff home at 8 weeks old, did you actually have any idea about the sort of training you wanted to do, or how you were even going to approach training this dog to do what you wanted him to do?
So I knew all about positive reinforcement and that I wanted to do that with Ziggy, but I just didn't really know how, and the, you know, where to start and what things to do first. And I think that there are a lot of different kind of training methods out there, and I don't judge one single person for doing it differently unless it becomes to the point where it's abuse, like, obviously. But when you get to, you know, if they were going towards the door and you didn't want them to, you would shut the door. or if you were walking towards the dog park and they were pulling, you would stop the walk. So you're kind of taking away something valuable to them to show them that that's not what you want to do. So I kind of have a mixed approach to it. I'm very open-minded, and I completely agree with the theory that every single dog is different and needs to be differently trained. But yeah, I'd say most of it is positive reinforcement, apart from when it comes to at night, like, again, when he's having that wild hour before he settles down for bed, and I need to remove every single toy so that he understands that actually it's time to switch off now and decompress. So yeah, I didn't know how to tackle it. I just bought loads of books and started reading.
That's it, just filling your brain with information so you can make informed decisions about kind of, how to guide him in the right direction. What does a typical week look like with Ziggy as far as training? So are you still doing training? Do you see that that's going to last for weeks, months, years ahead? And, what do you do every single day or week?
So we train every single day. We tend to pick up new ideas and things that we want to work on, and then we focus on that every single day. So very quick, short sessions of training. And I don't think I can see that ever stopping. Even if it's place training, for example, there's no end to what you can do with it. Has your dog learned to settle in the bathroom in case you needed to take a shower and nobody else was home? Or can your dog settle in the bedroom if you just wanted to nap if you were working night shifts? So you can take all of these different scenarios in your home and just run with them. I think I would honestly feel really itchy if I wasn't training with Ziggy. Because as much as he loves it, I enjoy just being connected with him and communicating with him on his level. So yeah, I'd probably say, yeah, we definitely train every single day, and I live to train Ziggy. When I finish work, I'm going home and I'm thinking, this is what we're going to do today, and I hope that we can achieve it or just make some progress.
What sort of things are you working on at the moment? What 2 or 3 or even 5 skills are you looking at?
So our biggest kind of issue at the moment is definitely neutrality to environments. So the beach, going out on walks, for example, because his loose lead walking, which is the second one that we're very much working on at the moment, we've kind of taken away the walking to that exciting environment, and then we've replaced it with the car. So we're going to have to kind of retrace our steps there and work on neutrality with the car now, and just being calm in the back of the car. So definitely those 2. Place training, ongoing. I feel that there's never ever a distraction that is going to get old to him. There's going to be different types of knocks. There's going to be people walking past the house. I think the last one was scent work and recall. Recall is pretty spot on with Ziggy, but again, he's never seen a deer. He's not been off lead around a squirrel. He's not been off lead around a cat. So even though it's really good when it comes to dogs and other animals in the field that we've already seen and we've proved, there are still gaps to fill. So constantly working on those things.
With that training that you're doing, you said you mainly follow a positive reinforcement kind of methods, and that actually differs from maybe what you grew up with your dad and your childhood dogs. Have you ever been tempted to try any other type of methods with training Ziggy? And if so, what made you kind of move away from it again to go back to positive reinforcement?
I don't think I've ever necessarily been tempted to move away, but there have been people on Instagram that have really inspired me and made me open-minded to understand that sometimes it is a necessity that they get trained differently because their behaviours are different, and that the dog's behaviour and outlook is different towards people and other things. It's a difficult one because there is so much judgment and stigma around different types of training other than positive reinforcement. But I do, just like with children, one child is definitely going to learn from you saying, if you go and tidy your room, we're going to go and have pizza tonight. another child might actually need to have it written down as part of a schedule. They need more boundaries, more stricter rules to make sure that they do that once a night. So I think that I definitely am open-minded to it, and should we ever have to look at those approaches, I would definitely be willing to, but I'm quite happy with how our training is going to not want to switch over.
Yeah, and I think that's a healthy way to look at it. Keep everything on the table just in case. And, if you have that what if moment, you're not going to avoid it if needs be. But there can be a lot of judgment out there with, how people see your training and whether it's right or wrong. And I know Ziggy's got his own Instagram account. Have you found that a supportive community for your training so far?
Oh my God, yes. I mean, I see the negativity and I try as much as I can to stay away from it and try and support those that are kind of being susceptible to it, because it's not a nice feeling. And I've very luckily never been bullied at school, but I can't imagine if somebody was coming down hard on me about the way I treat Ziggy, the love of my life, how, emotionally, how just life draining that would feel, that I'm not doing right by this little thing that I'm looking after and responsible for. So, but definitely for me, I've met some amazing friends on there that are super supportive, that have been through the same things, who've taught me so many things. I love being a part of it. I just think everybody should be reminded to sometimes take a break.
Yeah, absolutely. Break is healthy for you and for your dog. Go easy on yourself. What do you think life would be like if you'd not bothered doing any training at all with Ziggy? Do you think you'd have like a feral beast on your hand, or do you think he'd have got into his groove quite nicely?
I think it would be hell. I think it would be genuine chaos. And my partner's a bit older than me, and he's under the impression that they'll just grow into it. They'll just learn how to do stuff. And because the last Labrador he had was when he was 8. So he's under the impression that they'll just get it. And it wasn't until we brought him home and he understood what having a puppy was like and an adolescence was like that he really realized that it needed to be done. I would say that if you do not have the time to do the research and to put in the effort to train a dog, just don't get one.
Yeah, very, very sound advice there. So we can look at training, but also equipment. Equipment is important to discuss because everyone uses slightly different bits of kit and equipment. So some things will be to help with training. Other things are just to make our lives easier. So if we look at everyday essentials for a walk with Ziggy. So for me, if I were walking my dog, I've got a very small kind of array of kit. It's a slip lead, a pocket full of kibble, and a whistle. That's kind of my go-to essentials. What are your essential bits of kit when you go out with Ziggy? Have you got a go-to list?
100% whistle if we're going to an off-lead environment. Collar and harness. Those are probably my top 3. I do also now like to carry a first aid kit. So there's a new company called Poorly Paws, and I got a little first aid kit, and it has so much in it, and just to take that on the walk and feel, actually, if anything was to happen, I've got the basic minimum to cut his collar off, or I've got a little laser pen to shine a light to somebody if I'm far away, if I needed help. So that really kind of makes me feel, when I'm further away from home, at rest, that I'm gonna have something there just to help him if anything was to happen.
Yeah. The harness that you use, so which harness do you use? And I guess, sorry, before I ask that question, I guess you've probably used 5 harnesses or 6 harnesses because you've probably tried them all. Which harness have you settled on, and why do you find it so good?
So we are using the Perfect Fit harness. I bought Ziggy an over the head harness one, and he was very kind of sheepish about putting his head into it. He didn't feel comfortable having it on, or just kind of scared about it, I guess. But because he doesn't wear anything when he's at home, I think that was could have been a failure on my part, that I didn't introduce it and encourage it enough when he was younger, because he's always been a naked dog at home. So yeah, we've gone with Perfect harness, and we've done a lot of shaping and conditioning around him using it and him being happy to wear it. But he does that is the only harness that I will use, purely because of the way it secures Ziggy, as well as keeps him safe from harming himself. And with it's got 3 attachments, so it's not like I have to cut through something to get it off. If I was to just undo 2 buckles, it would be gone and we could get free from whatever nightmare we're facing. So yeah, I love it. And it does come in loads of different colors and reflecting. So it's just, yeah, it's a very nice fit.
Yeah, and they are really strong, solid harnesses. I use them as well, and I can definitely endorse that recommendation. Training dogs is not just about training the dog. It's about broadening your own knowledge and your experience. And it's a real learning curve for most humans that get their first dog. Tell us a little bit about how you've kind of expanded your own knowledge on dog training, because you've really thrown yourself in the deep end here.
I have, yeah. So starting out with books and looking online, following people on Instagram, watching videos. I just wanted more. I just needed to find out more about it. And I've been, not to make it about me, I've been kind of trying to find a career for, I don't know, the past 10 years of my life. And if it wasn't for Ziggy, I don't think that I would have found myself falling in love with training dogs as much as I do. So I have actually started college and working towards becoming a dog trainer. And again, I'm very open-minded. I would like to look after dogs and help dogs. The dream one day would be to maybe have a rescue somewhere in the hills. But right now, I really want to kind of get as much knowledge as I can to help not only my dog, but because I've been in that situation, I've come back from walks in tears, I've stayed awake at night worrying. I want to be that supportive network, just like you are for many Labrador owners, to say, let me help you. Like, don't rehome your dog, don't stress about it. Let's work through this and get through it together. Because I think that so many people, they struggle to the point of no return, and I want to be that fighting factor to say, your dog loves you, but you're just not on the same page.
Yeah. And, just before we started recording, actually, we spoke about how it's often easier to do that with a dog that you're not emotionally attached to, because you're living this moment with Ziggy every single day. And it can be really quite challenging because you pick up on every little emotion. I've got no doubt that you're going to make a really good dog trainer because you've lived that experience with Ziggy, and, you want to genuinely help other people. Because other people will find it difficult, I would also like to ask you about the really tough times with Ziggy, because I know having an 18-month-old is not easy. So, before we go into the tough stuff, just tell us the best bits about him, because I don't want this to turn into a negative Ziggy show. We've got to hear the really good stuff. So tell us about the best bits.
Oh, the best bits. I mean, I don't know where to start. He has literally given me this unconditional love that kind of makes me want to thrive to be better for him every single day. And as corny and cringy as that may sound to some people, he's just filled like such a huge hole. The way he looks at me when I'm walking across the room, or if I'm getting up, and which is also sometimes annoying because I want him to settle, but the way he follows me around the house and just kind of, I mean, Ziggy sleeps in our bed, right? So I'm not going to lie about that. I've never kind of been shy about the fact that I wanted my baby to be sleeping with me. Just the way he is, the way he cuddles in, and just the amount of kind of, I'd say, respect that he has for me for putting in the effort with him, the bond that we've created. He's just a really funny, loving little character who just lights up so many people's day whenever he's seen.
You have to always remember those positive things, those things that make you smile, because when you have the bad days, they're the things that need to be like in the forefront of your mind. You have to have that purpose of why you're putting yourself through it for another day of that awful lead walk, because you want to get to that end goal. Do you think the reality of having Ziggy differs from maybe what you thought it would be before you brought him home?
I didn't think that we were going to have this emotional connection, from my end anyway, that we do. And I didn't think that I'd worry half as much about him. I didn't, and I thought that he was just going to be he was just going to come home and he was going to go in his crate and he was going to piss outside. Piss? Can I say piss?
You can say piss. Say it again.
He'll go to the toilet outside. He'll be well trained. He'll walk off lead down the road with me and not run away or bark at cars or anything like that. So I just thought that seeing as a Labrador when I was a little girl, and I've been so naive about this whole situation, and I really do stress if anyone's thinking about getting a Labrador or getting any dog for that matter, really do your research before it, because I was so naive to thinking that I didn't have to do half the work that I have done, and I don't regret one single bit of it, but I wish I was more prepared.
It's a lot different from what a lot of people think they're going to get. Most people actually think they're going to be this perfect family pet that, you know, does turn up on your doorstep almost half trained and they're going to just smash everything and nail everything, but often it's the total opposite. What's been your most frustrating part of owning a Labrador?
The most frustrating part of owning a Labrador, probably because of how high intensity driven they are, the anxiety that it brings me that he's going to hurt himself is probably one of the things I've struggled with the most, because once he's got that on switch, he cannot switch off. If he wants to do something, whether that be find that treat that I've thrown in the garden, you know, even sometimes before I've thrown that treat, he's going for it. So it's that kind of impulse control that we kind of really, really need to work on. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I've struggled with, is not really realizing how much, as well as happiness, anxiety it was going to bring as well.
Yeah, but that's because you care. That's it's for all the right reasons. But yeah, you are this dog's everything. You feed him, walk him, train him, love him, care for him. It's a big responsibility to have, and you know, it's good that you care. You've just got to keep remembering that he bloody loves you, and you know it's gonna be great. Was Ziggy crate trained from a puppy?
No, so when we got him home, we had his crate all set up. We had the toys, we had the treats, scattered treats in there, and it was literally a dog's dream to just walk in there and be like, wow, this is my bedroom, my mum's cool, like look at all this stuff I've got. He would not step one foot in his crate, and we tried throughout the day, and then because we wanted him to sleep with us at night, we put him in the crate. Obviously he was actually light enough to pick up and put in a crate then, and we got up every night. I set alarms every 2 hours to get up and take him out, but throughout the day he wouldn't step foot in his crate. And me being the pushover I am, I thought, well, if I get him a bed, why does he need a crate? Like, it's ugly, it's in the way, it's there. Why do I need a crate if he's going to just sit on a bed? And I highly regret the decision I made now by not crate training him.
So how would it be different if you were crate trained? What benefits do you think that would give you as a long-term tool for Ziggy?
I think at the puppy stage, you don't know what kind of dog you've got, and if you do end up having a dog that is severely anxious or slightly aggressive or doesn't like children, or doesn't even like loud noises, you've got that little comfort area for that dog to kind of go and escape, or you've got that dog to protect from other people or to protect other people from that dog. I mean, we've been very lucky that Ziggy's not had any of those kind of behavioural issues, but I'm again back with that impulse control. If he was to run through a fence with barbed wire and he had to be crated for 6 months rest or whatever, I would have no way in God's name to keep that boy still. Not when his human brothers and sisters walk through the door, or when he hears my other half's bike coming down the road. He would want to be going. He just want to be on the go all the time. So I think having that area where they can really switch off and rest is something that I would have probably, if I'd known, really would have stuck with.
Okay, yeah, and I think you're right. You know, trying to contain an excitable teenager if they've had an injury or they've got an illness can be really tough. And if they've got that safe place they want to go to, it can work really nicely. Talking about excitable teenagers, do you mind me asking you about the fact that Ziggy is still intact?
No, not at all.
Controversial subject, and everyone has their opinions. It's probably the most opinionated subject out there. What's your grand plan for Ziggy as he grows up? Is he going to stay intact? Are you going to get him castrated? What are your thoughts?
He is the best dog for me. In my eyes, he's not doing anything wrong. He's not overly, he is, I mean, don't get me wrong, he is hormonal and he does go over threshold, but doesn't every dog, whether they've got their knackers or not. And I think that until I've given every single bit of me to keep him the way he is, then there's no reason for me right now at this moment to get him castrated. I think that he's not overly a sexy dog. If he's overtired and we've had a long day, he sometimes humps his bed, but he's never gone near a person or anything like that. It's his bed and sometimes a rogue cushion that someone leaves lying around. But all in all, he's just not really given me any reason to even look at doing that. So I think that it's such a huge operation, and if there's no need for him to have that done, then I'm just going to let him be perfect as he is.
Thank you. I do appreciate you sharing those thoughts with us. Let's look at how your experiences with Ziggy can kind of be transferred to help other people. So what do you reckon is the biggest misunderstanding about owning or caring for or even training a Labrador?
So I think one of the biggest misunderstandings from the public is that because Labradors are family dogs, that they're allowed to be touched by every single person that walks past them. I also think that every single person that gets a Labrador assumes that they're going to be the family pet that is from the movies, that will walk down the road smiling at you and grabbing a stick and maybe fetching your slipper and your post. But that's really not what they are. They are such intelligent dogs, but they're also very complex that can pick up on issues on the switch of a hat. I mean, I think that everybody should really understand that every single dog is different, every single Labrador is different. So not ever assuming what you're going to end up with. You should be prepared for kind of every scenario.
And I think it's also about, not looking at the broad picture of what a Labrador is, but it's actually looking at what your Labrador is.
Yeah.
Because they're all very, very different. My Labradors are probably different to Ziggy. Ziggy's probably different to someone else down the road. You've got to look at your dog, not a generic four-legged creature. If there's anyone listening to this that's just bought this cute little bundle of fluff home and they're sat at home thinking, right, what should I be doing? What would your one piece of advice be to them?
I would say take them as many places as you can, socialize them, not necessarily meeting every single person or dog, but letting them sit there and look at a cat and understanding that the cat's probably just going to look at it back and walk right off. And also take your dog and kind of shape him to the life that you want to lead. If you're in a pub every single weekend, take that dog to the pub, make sure that there's, the tools in place to make them be a good pub dog or a good beach dog. I think that so many people are like focused on teaching like sit and paw and look pretty and down and roll over, those cute little tricks that are amazing and they're lovely. But I didn't even start thinking about loose lead walking until probably about 5 or 6 months, because he wouldn't move from the doorstep, right? And I'm like, come on, let's go. Like, we're going out on a walk. And he was like, that's scary. Like, outside is scary. So by the time he actually started walking, I was like, yes, amazing. And he was looking at me, smiling, running down the road. And I thought, this is great. And now he's 30 kilos. So a lot's changed. So focus on the dog that you want to have and start from the very, very get-go.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant advice. You've got this cute little puppy. We've got to think, right, what do we want this puppy to grow into in 2 years' time? That's actually the things we need to focus on. And like you say, the the tricks, the spinning on the spot and the giving paw, it's not really going to impact too much on that long-term goal. So I think you can have your essential things to teach your dog, and then you're nice to have as like a bonding exercise, maybe, you know, as you're, you know, settling down for a cold evening or something like that. Ziggy likes his food, right? So you get some natural chews for him. So what are his top 5 natural chews, and tell us a little bit about where you get them from?
Oh, so if I was going to go for a long laster, it would probably be a beef bark extra large, which actually lasts Ziggy an hour, sometimes 2 days. If he's getting tired and he can't get through it, I will take it away from him and reintroduce to him the next day. He loves all things chicken feet, beef jerky, and we actually are an ambassador rep for a company called Puppy Chops Pet Shop. It's a lovely small business with the most beautiful, wonderful owner, Kat, who has been so helpful in terms of understanding nutritional value for Ziggy, because that's another thing that I think a lot of dog owners don't think about, is that, you know, nutrition is highly important for avoiding vet bills and making sure that they've got what they need to be a working dog or a show line or a home dog, a family pet. So yeah, she's wonderful, and she's taught me a lot about nutrition and the importance of decompression and allowing puppies to chew, which is something that Ziggy, touch wood, has never ever done. And I think that's because we introduce things that he could chew. So if you give him like a yak or something that is edible and suitable for your dog's age, and they can chew on that, then they're not going to want to go and chew the corner of your table, because that tastes like rubbish compared to, you know, a bit of cow.
A bit of tasty cow.
Cow.
Yeah, but you know, chewing is doing. It's okay for dogs to chew. Like you say, we just need to give them the right things. We mentioned at the beginning that working line Labradors like the sense of purpose and they like a job to do. Chewing is a job that they can do, because if they're not doing that, they'll go and find something different to chew or something different to do. So you mentioned about Puppy Chops Pet Shop kind of providing those legal chews that Ziggy can have. Is there a discount code that you've got as well for people to go to them and maybe try some of their products?
Yeah, so if you use the code Ziggy, just Ziggy in capital letters, it'll get you some savings. And they also do some really, really great live sales every single month, where you can get hugely discounted on products from enrichment to chews to, you know, natural treats, you know, natural training treats as well, that's really going to make your dog want to work for something. So yeah.
Excellent. We'll put your discount code and the link in the show notes on the podcast store so people can refer to that. Let's finish it off by giving one key final message to any listeners that are just out there with a Labrador of any age and they're actually finding it a tough challenge at the moment. What would you say to them?
You're not alone. There are so many people out there that had the misconception that Labradors were going to be this perfect little best friend that's going to behave all the time. And I would say get in touch with somebody, you know, follow us on Instagram. We've got such a huge network of people that are there to support one another. And I would just say, let them know, because I'm sure as hell that they've either gone through or going through the same thing that you are. And don't be afraid to contact a trainer. I think some people are so worried sometimes that they can't just ask and maybe, you know, get a consultation and see if that's the right person for them to go with. I just don't suffer in silence. And if you need to cry it out, take 5 minutes away from your dog and just reset yourself, because there's nothing, you can't do anything when you're in that state of mind. You know, you're upset that your dog's not behaving the way you want. You need to kind of just take a step back and say, and remember all those good bits. Like you said, remember the good bits, remember why you're doing it, remember why you started and what the end goal is and how much progress you've made already, because there's got to be some. So yeah, just take a step back and seek help.
Do you find the responsibility of being Ziggy's carer, companion, his everything, a bit of a burden at times? Or I suppose, is it something that you worry about or raises your anxieties?
100%. I've been very kind of open about this on my Instagram and said, I'm struggling. And I remember one day crying to my other half and saying, I just can't do it anymore. I felt so overwhelmed with the responsibility of protecting Ziggy and making sure that he was safe, that it just got to the point where, I started taking like herbal remedies and things that would really help me to kind of relax a little bit, lilac on the pillow to help me sleep at night. And I think that all actually, I haven't told anybody this apart from my family. We were actually walking towards town one day, and it was when Ziggy was probably about 7 months old. And I bent down because I'd got caught up in his harness and I accidentally let go of the lead. Ziggy didn't have any recall at that point. He didn't know a stop command. He ran right into the middle of the road of the high street. That was a Sunday, and it was luckily about 7:30 in the morning. So I had my dry robe on and my Crocs, and I sprinted and I screamed, and I can just remember crying and seeing it all happen before my eyes. And I think ever since that moment, I felt this overwhelming need to protect him at all costs. I think that the anxiety has really kind of struck me. And I think that does hinder sometimes on how well I do and how I train because of that emotional attachment that I've got to him. So it is sometimes difficult, but I think I'm slowly managing it. And I definitely think that I'm getting better with my anxieties, and I just need to talk about them more. So again, if anybody is ever struggling with the same kind of insecurities, anxieties, that you're not doing a good job or wanting to protect them, then just get in touch, because the thing that was making me worse was, I think, was getting in my head about it and not actually opening up.
Do you think that's because a lot of the, particularly social media, a lot of people are only kind of posting the good stuff and maybe not the reality?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I think that, I expected to get my Instagram to get Ziggy loads of cool different bandanas, bow ties, little booties, maybe some Crocs, and just have a highlight reel of everything perfect and him just looking stunning as he is. But it's become so much more about, actually going through a process with everybody. We're all on this road of confusion towards the end senior dog that walks beside us and knows how to make us a cup of tea. But we're all there, and I think that, I just think that people need to speak about how they're struggling more, because it paints a pretty picture for those that maybe, like myself, maybe I was a bit naive to how it was actually going to be.
I think talking about it, seeking advice from other people, whether it's professionals or just, your peer group, it makes you a better carer for Ziggy, because you're open to other ideas, and you've got people there that have got your back and are going to be there for you. And that's one of the things I love about your Instagram account, because it's brutal honesty at times. It's not just the polished dog, and that's real life. So well done for kind of talking about and posting the realities of it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I would hate for anybody to feel that they were doing a bad job, and everybody has their own specific thing that they're struggling with. One of my good friends is suffering with separation anxiety, not her dog, but she supports me in my wins with Ziggy's loose lead walking as much as I support her with their training on SA. So yeah, it's all about just being there for each other and finding someone who really has got your back, and you will meet the best of friends. Yeah,
and that offer of help is extended from me, so you can contact me, talesofsuccess.com. Meg, I'm sure you're going to say that your inbox is open if anyone wants to message you, so give us some details of where people can find you on Instagram.
Yes, so, oh my god, how awful, I've forgotten Ziggy's handle. It is Ziggy Star Dog 30, all lowercase. So yeah, just come and say hi, or just follow along. He's very famous for always taking dumps in the bushes, so hence why we couldn't find a toilet break tonight for him before our talk.
Fantastic. Go check Ziggy's account out and show some support to Meg, who is giving her absolute everything to help Ziggy live a wonderful life. Megan, thanks for sharing Ziggy with our listeners. Keep doing what you're doing. Enjoy many, many happy years with him. Thanks for joining us. Find out more by checking out talesofsuccess.com or search at Tales Success on your social channels.